Hey everyone, Duke Nukem 3D here with another video for you guys, and as promised, here is a comparison between the M3 and M4 lightweight service masks. I'm not going to go too deep into the history on this one. You can check out my M3 10916 and M4 10916 reviews on those, so why don't we just get right down to the, just a little brief history, I guess, maybe. So, as stated before, the M3 10916 was developed around 1942 or so as a replacement for the older M2 series heavyweight service masks, which would use a longer 27-inch M2 hose and a bulkier M1 series canister, typically a M981 or 2. And those were soon to be found unsatisfactory for general infantry use due to their weight, and they just took up a lot of space on the side of your body, even like all packed up in their carrier. So what they did was they took the M2 face blank, they upgraded it slightly to have the lower straps riveted off further away from the face blank so as not to require rifle skids. And what they did is they added an internal oronasal cup to help reduce fogging even further than the TISO deflectors already did. And they, most importantly, they gave it a shorter M3 hose, an M10 canister, or later M10A1, and of course the M6 carrier, which is not going to be featured in this video. And that went all right. Initially, the M3s were, they were pretty easy to produce for the most part. They were getting a bit complicated though, because there was soon found to be shortages of natural rubber in the United States due to the war in the Pacific and Japan cutting off most of the U.S.'s supply to natural rubber. And so what they did was they were trying to figure out a way to produce the M3. They would ultimately produce it out of chloroprene rubber, otherwise known as neoprene, and that was also found to be unsatisfactory due to the fact that neoprene acquires a permanent set in colder weather that makes the mask impossible, if not difficult, to don in Arctic temperatures. So while this was going on, while they were producing the M3, they were trying to retrofit older M2 masks into the M4 series masks as well, and I've covered most of this in my review. And I believe the M4 was introduced around 1943 at the latest, and it was really just a matter of getting M2 masks up to standard with the M3 configuration. So why don't we go ahead into the more intricate details of the mask itself. Right off the bat, you can see, well, actually, before I get into the details, I should just like to mention that both of these examples, both these face blanks are made by the General Tire and Rubber Company and share almost the same identical mold, other than the fact, of course, that the harness configuration is slightly different. The mold for the face blank is more or less the same in its profile, and I've gotten to a point these days where I can typically tell the manufacturers apart just by looking at the odd shape of the nose bulge. The ones made by General Tire and Rubber seem to be a lot more narrower in the face blank. The ones made by Firestone and Goodyear tend to be a bit wider. They have a much more flatter, broader nose bulge, and the ones made by Acushnet will typically have a very round, bulgy, prominent nose bulge. So that being said, right off the bat, you will see that the main difference between the M3 and M4 here is this M3 is made out of chloroprene rubber, but as stated before, these were originally made out of Class B gray rubber, such as with the M4 and M2 series masks. Comparing the two from the side, you can easily see the difference in configuration of the head harness, with the M3 having its lower strap riveted off and at an upwards angle over here, and then with the M4, which again is literally an M2A2 that they reconfigured up to M4 standards. They just, they still have the lower strap angled slightly downwards and riveted further up on the mask with an additional set of webbing bridges, and of course the rifle skids are present. And because I didn't mention in my last review, I forgot to mention rifle skids were basically a feature implemented in the M2 series masks, because it was discovered that when a soldier was aiming his rifle up against his shoulder, the buttstock of the rifle would consistently catch on this webbing here, and so this basically allowed the butt of the rifle to slide up and off the rivet so that it would not catch on it and potentially damage it over time. So a little bit of a neat feature there. It's kind of weird, but this was obviously omitted with the M3, but due to, again, the fact that they needed a stopgap mask to fill in for the lackluster production of the M3 initially, the M4 was just, that was what they had. That's pretty much the majority to see externally. There is one more detail to see on the inside, which I will remove the face form that I've made here, and I will invert the harness. So, as you can see, with the M3, you have the nose cup, which is glued in place onto the internals of the mask, and the outlet valve simply holds it in place around the valve port. And overall internals are going to be mostly the same between the two masks. However, for one defining difference, so I will remove the face form on my M4 and invert the harness. So as you can see, on the M4, as mentioned in my M4 review, the nose cup is riveted with the harness rivets. They, I believe they did reconfigure the webbing on these specifically just to install the nose cups, and they probably went ahead and redid all of these rivets for the most part. I know that I think they left the original washers that would have been on the M2 intact because they're a gray color here, and the rest of the rivets are black. But nevertheless, they riveted the nose cups in place, which is, again, not my favorite feature because, as you can see, it causes it to curl a whole lot, and but it doesn't really matter because ultimately, if you were to be removing these rivets and removing the nose cup, it would be for replacement anyhow, and that wouldn't really matter. But other than that, the nose cup is entirely the same. This one is a bit warped, as you can see, and that tends to happen with these masks because of how thin these nose cups are. But yeah, both the nose cups are the same, just because of the position of the harness straps, they are riveted in on the M4 and not on the M3. And that is pretty much it to see for this review. That's pretty much all I need to cover exactly. I know that there is quite a few different variations of these masks due to the vast quantity of manufacturers and differences in molds and paints, colors on the lenses, and colors of the plastic hardware and the webbing and all that sort of stuff. But I'm not getting into that. I just wanted to compare my two examples of an M3 and M4 lightweight. So I hope you could learn a thing or two about the differences between these two masks, and that's really all there is to say, pretty much. So, with that being said, I'm Duke Nuker 3D. Hope you enjoyed. Be sure to comment. If you have any comments, questions, corrections, or concerns, drop them in the comments below, and I'll see you all later.